Growing up, I was not into anything scary. In fact, it was so bad, I would get nightmares from the Halloween episodes of sitcoms. Steve Urkel's ventriloquist doll coming to life was a traumatic event for me. Of course, as the years went by, I would become a little more brave. TGIF wasn't a place I was afraid to visit, but I was still no fan of horror. That all changed when, over Thanksgiving break in 2008, while all of my roommates were gone for the holiday, I decided to finally play a game I had bought on a whim from a pawn shop. Resident Evil 4. I mean, for years I had heard people call it one of the best games of all time, so I had to give it a try. And though I was a little nervous at first, I found myself not being able to put it down. And from that point on, I've been hooked, not only on the series, but on horror in general. I went from someone who couldn't stomach Chucky showing up on daytime television to someone who would go and see Hereditary by themselves in theaters. In starting to play through these games, I learned that fear could be fun, and that facing those fears head on, both on the screen and in the real world, could lead to a more satisfying life. In 1989, Capcom released a game called Sweet Home for the Nintendo Famicom, based on a Japanese horror movie of the same name. Though it gathered positive reviews in Japan at the time, it was never made available in the West. 4 years later, Capcom higher-ups would have Shinji Mikami begin work on a game that would come to be called Biohazard. This game would use elements found in Sweet Home, such as being set in a mansion, item scarcity, and exploration. When readying the game to come to the United States, Capcom realized that they wouldn't be able to copyright the name Biohazard, since a DOS game had used the title and the name was also being used by a punk band. After having trouble coming up with a replacement name to use in the United States, Capcom had a contest within the company to come up with a replacement, with Resident Evil winning out. With the game finished and the names in place, the first game to ever be called Survival Horror was released on the PlayStation in spring of 1996. The game was a huge success and has become a fixture in gaming ever since. From pioneering horror in games with the original trilogy released on the PlayStation, to popularizing third-person, over-the-shoulder perspectives, and introducing many players to QuickTime events with 2005's Resident Evil 4, and eventually making the jump to VR in 2017 with Resident Evil 7, the series has left a big mark in the medium. With over 25 games in the series, though, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. And though games like Resident Evil 6 or Umbrella Corps seemed likely to sink the ship, Resident Evil has kept going strong for a quarter of a century. Its impact hasn't just been felt in the worlds of video games, however. The popularity of the game went on to spawn 6 live-action movies, with a reboot coming out later this year. Animated films, comic books, novels, toys, you name it, there's probably a Resident Evil version of it. Overall, the property has made over $2.67 billion. And with the 8th mainline game, Village, coming out on May 7th of this year, it would be safe to say that the series isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The story found in the Resident Evil series is a lot of things, but one thing it isn't is simple. With over 10 playable protagonists in the main series alone, it's a lot to keep track of. And don't even get me started on the importance of knowing the inner workings of the international pharmaceutical company, the Umbrella Corporation. And though there is a lot of lore to get lost in, it isn't necessary to enjoy the games at a base level. What you need to know is this. In July of 1998, the number of murders had been reported to the police of Raccoon City. A special police group known as STARS is sent into the woods to investigate. When they find that part of their team has been attacked by zombified dogs, they are chased into a large house known as the Spencer Mansion, where the events of the first game take place. You spend the game playing as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, exploring the mansion, solving puzzles, and obtaining key items to try and find a way to escape the events of the night alive. This wouldn't be too difficult if the house wasn't filled with monsters. As you fight your way through the house, you discover who is really behind the strange goings-on and try to stop them before they are able to finish their evil plans. And though Resident Evil is known for its horror, it's important to know up front that it's also incredibly cheesy.
Wow, what a mansion!
The original game's voice acting is so bad that it's iconic at this point in the gaming community, with a number of its lines being referenced and memed today.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Things only get crazier as the series goes on, with one game culminating in a volcano having Chris, the playable character, having to punch a boulder to make progress. With that being said, as ridiculous as it all is, the series somehow manages to become scary again. So, how are these games able to build such a feeling of dread? For starters, Resident Evil doesn't skimp in the monster department. You've got zombies, zombie dogs, amphibian-human hybrids, killer crows, giant bees, zombie sharks, giant snakes, giant spiders, human fly hybrid creatures, mutant plants, and the final boss, which is known as the Tyrant. And that's all just in the first game. As scary as the monsters can be, they wouldn't hold up the way that they do if it wasn't for the atmosphere that the game creates. As you explore the giant empty house, a storm rages outside. Flashes of lightning will illuminate the otherwise dark hallways. Spooky statues and paintings decorate the rooms, reminding you of who might have lived there before. And every time you want to enter another room, the door serves as a loading screen for the next room, but also helps to raise the tension. What could be on the other side? Am I prepared for whatever I have to face? Or if I'm re-entering a room, was there a zombie in here that I ran away from last time? Those extra seconds of uncertainty really build the tension. The sound design in the game also helps in setting the mood. Whether it's hearing the moan of a zombie that's just out of sight, or hearing the howls of the dogs that trapped you in the house in the first place, there's always something to hear to put you on edge. In fact, the only respite you'll find from the dread in the house is the save room. And as nice as it is to find a moment of peace, even here you can find fear, knowing that you have to leave this safety eventually to continue on your mission. And don't even get me started on the jump scares. But as scary as a game is, it can only be scary for so long. And some people might think that when a horror game stops being scary, the fun stops. But for me personally, getting past the fear and going into the game with a newfound confidence is where the fun actually begins. As the game goes on, you become more familiar with the map, but you also become more powerful. So you start the game with only a pistol, but as the game continues, you'll find a shotgun, a grenade launcher, flamethrower, Barry's revolver, and finally a rocket launcher. With each of these upgrades, it becomes easier to stop the monsters that you run into. Things that would have had you running in the other direction earlier in the game now are a slight nuisance, making the fear of coming across them smaller and smaller. And the game becomes even more fun on a second playthrough. Now that you know where all of the zombies are, you don't even have to worry about killing all of them. You can just run around them, dodge them to be able to get by faster, and saving the ammo for the bosses that you'll need it for. Running down the hallways of the Spencer Mansion, dodging enemies to be able to get a faster time to unlock new secret weapons brings a new level of enjoyment to the game that can't be found the first time through. With every additional playthrough, the fun is less and less about being scared and more about mastering the environment and the problems that the game throws at you. Some people will never play Resident Evil, and that's fair. I mean, there's plenty of reasons not to. I mean, it's pretty gross for starters, so I won't hold that against them. But I hope that the idea of being afraid itself isn't something that will stop you from trying it out. Sometimes in the game we can get caught up on not wanting to die, and we forget that that's all a part of the process of learning what the game has in store. The best way to learn that a zombie is around that corner is to get grabbed by it a couple times. Then I'll remember to look out for it next time. Just like in the game, in life, we can be hesitant to try new things because we're afraid of failing. But we have to remember that a lot of these setbacks aren't so big that we can't recover from them, both in the game and in life. We can't get stuck in the safety of the save rooms, just comfortably sitting, not being willing to take any risks. Only by going out and getting chomped by some zombies or failing at something new can we really gain the confidence and experience that will allow us to do better the next time we try. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you were able to maybe learn something new or feel a little inspired to go out and get scared. In the comments below, let me know the scariest piece of entertainment that you enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like it by hitting that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Saturday with a new video.